One of my, I guess, biggest grievances with the fragrance industry, and this kind of happens mainly in the designer space, is the proliferation of flankers, of original perfumes that have proven to be popular commercially, critically, mainly commercially, especially in the designer realm. We see it with the amazing success of Dior's Sauvage, and there have been Eau de Parfum, Parfum, now Elixirs. I don't even know how many more there are. It is, to my, I guess, probably naive eyes, a cynical marketing ploy to increase revenue, right? And it does creep into what we would consider kind of niche territory. I noticed that Amouage started to do it a few years ago by releasing various flankers. I think there was an interlude flanker. There might be an epic flanker, probably more, but I haven't really been paying attention. Now, flankers, they can be good, okay? I've decided to talk about several perfumes, fragrances that I actually prefer right now to the original release that spawned the flanker. Before I go ahead and talk about these fragrances, I want you to come in a little bit closer and listen very, very carefully. Whenever I talk about fragrance and say things about them on my channel, they are always just my opinion based on my own specific, very individual circumstances, situation, and I cannot replicate what I smell and what comes off my skin to the majority of other reviewers. Sometimes I will be in agreement with a majority of other reviewers, and sometimes I'm going to have a minority opinion about it. This is why ultimately you still have to make up your own mind with what you smell. I don't say things about a fragrance or perfume because I have some kind of agenda. Like, if I smell something and I like it, I like it. I don't want to like some perfumes because I don't agree with the brand or I don't like people involved with them. But if I like it, I like it. I know I like it. I'm not going to deny that. So having said that, I am going to talk about some fragrances, probably 8 or 9, I think, that were released as a variation of the original fragrance. Now, one last thing before I talk about it. You can get flankers that are very clearly related to the original release. There's been some variation added to, as an example, make it more seasonally appropriate, but you can recognize that the original DNA character is in the flanker. In some cases, in a couple that I'm going to talk about here, they are virtually different fragrances, and it's very difficult for me to make a through line from the original to the flanker and understand where the relation is apart from the name and the packaging. So let's get started. I'm gonna, given that I recently made my current favorite top 10 fragrances, and this one was at number 1. The most obvious one for me is actually Dior Homme Intense. I used to own the original EDT, not original silver stem I had a black stem. I enjoyed it. Eventually, I kind of just got bored with it. And like I've mentioned before, I've ignored the intense version for a long, long time. Then I finally wore it properly. I tested it and I fell in love with it. And at the moment, it's my favorite perfume. Also, coincidentally, my most worn so far in 2025. So I think Dior Homme Intense is a better fragrance than its original predecessor. Another one, which now for a long time I thought this one was discontinued, but it appears you can still buy it. I only saw it quite recently, and I'm talking about Prada Amber Pour Homme Intense. Originals Prada Amber Pour Homme in the lighter coloured bottle. This is an example like Dior Homme Intense where there is similarities between the original and the flanker. I like this because it's a little bit darker. There's the added sort of resinous and bitterness of the myrrh in here. I found the original Amber Pour Homme to be quite powdery, and here it's actually toned down. So I much prefer Amber Pour Homme Intense. This one here, long time favorite, and I have done a review of the original. This is an interesting one because there was usually there's not a long lag time between the release of an original and then a flanker because of its commercial success. In the case of Hermes, there was literally probably a decade and a half between the original Equipage and Equipage Geranium, which is one of my all-time favorite fragrances. Now, having said that, I have tested the original Equipage in its current form, not vintage, of course, and I really like that one. It's almost as though, even though I smell the similarities between them, if I empty this bottle and I can't find another geranium, I will more than happily replace it with the original Equipage, which happens to still be available from Hermes. Now, this next one, for me, is an example of a flanker. Again, decades apart from the original. But if you smell the original Eau de Toilette and then smell Dior Eau Sauvage Parfum, this is my preferred Dior Eau Sauvage. But I think that they are completely different fragrances. I own the original Eau Sauvage in its current form again, but they are just so different that it's, apart from, recognizing the bottle, the name again, for that reason, I own both of them because they're different. There's no redundancy between them. Like there might be for me owning Dior Homme EDT compared to the Intense, right? But with Eau Sauvage, there is no redundancy in owning the EDT and the Parfum. But if I had to only own one of them, it would definitely be the Parfum. This one is going to be a little bit controversial only because I have loved the original for so long. Again, another instance where this flanker is decades apart from the original release of the nominal perfume. There is similarities between the original and this one. I like the way they have tweaked this one, and this one is a creeper. It's kind of crept up on me to the point where now, if I had to make the very difficult but currently unnecessary decision to choose one, I would go with Habit Rouge Rouge Privé over Habit Rouge EDT. As much as I love the EDT, but right now I'm loving the addition of iris and more suede leather in this flanker. This is another example of, Habit Rouge, Guerlain have done this with Habit Rouge. They consistently released flankers, and although the Eau de Parfum came out quite a fair bit after the EDT, but then you had all this other line of flankers like the dress code. There's recently been Instinct, something else. I can't remember what it was called. The Parfum has recently been released as well. So, there is always a bit of overkill, but sometimes there is a gem that comes out like Rouge Privé, in my opinion, that, basically is level at least with the original for me. All right, now I'm going to move on to a couple of flankers I prefer and have tried in the past that I don't currently own bottles of, and I'm not sure I would own bottles of, but because I've tested them extensively, I can say that I prefer the flankers to the original. Now, the first one is Terre d'Hermes Parfum. I have always preferred the Parfum version to the original EDT. The EDT I've always found a little bit too screechy for my nose on my skin. The Parfum just basically is the EDT with all those sharp edges rounded off, smoothed, and made, it's gone from wearing really scratchy synthetic shirt to a beautifully tailored velvet top, right? That's kind of how it feels to me wearing Terre d'Hermes EDT to the Parfum. And I still prefer the Parfum over the other Terre d'Hermes flankers so far that I've smelled, although I did really enjoy Eau Givrée recently when I tested it. So Terre d'Hermes Parfum is my preferred Terre d'Hermes. Encre Noire. Now, I actually used to own Encre Noire Eau Extrême and Encre Noire Sport. And I actually bypassed the original Encre Noire up until recently. So recently I got a sample of the original Encre Noire and have been wearing it a few times. And even after wearing it, I kind of just can't connect with that original Encre Noire, whereas I literally owned bottles of Encre Noire or Extreme and Sport and enjoyed wearing them at the time. In the end, I ended up moving those bottles on because, again, I'm trying to keep bottles that I have some kind of emotional connection to, which very, very much limits my spending and buying of bottles. And so, but if we're talking about flankers that I prefer over the original, then Encre Noire or Extreme and Sport, I both prefer over the original Encre Noire. The next one that I want to talk about, I own Cartier's Déclaration, and recently I've been testing Déclaration d'un Soir, and I think I am definitely would replace the original Déclaration with that flanker. It's a really well-made, different angle on a rose scent specifically marketed to men, I guess. I love its herbal green elements. That rose is just really restricted and not allowed to be big in any way, but I kind of really love it in that sense, because it's there, but it's very timid and shy and polite, and it adds a bit of mystery to that scent. So that is the flanker that I prefer to the original. I'm going to save the most I don't know if this is the most surprising one till last. It's the most recent one, that's for sure. The most recent one where I have smelled a flanker of a fragrance that I have owned and loved for years now. I still love it, but, and I'm not going to well, I'm not going to buy this bottle immediately. When I finish my bottle of Diptyque's Boulevard, 34 Boulevard Saint-Germain EDT, I will replace it with the Eau de Parfum version. Recently did a video doing a comparison, and Eau de Parfum kind of is really doing it for me right now. So that's a flanker that also came out quite a few years after the original came out. And I think right at this moment, I prefer 34 Boulevard Saint-Germain Eau de Parfum to the original EDT. So that is my video for today. I want to know in the comments about flankers that you prefer to their original. I'm sure there are tons out there. I know there are lots of fans of things like Bel Ami, Vetiver, and some people do prefer the EDP versions of, Habit Rouge or Heritage. And that's the other thing that I forgot to mention as well, if you're still with me at this point of the video, is that it gets really blurry with flankers, because then you do have brands that do EDT, EDP versions where they still kind of smell the same, just different concentrations, or they smell different. It's a different formula. Then, the eccentric molecule line, all flankers of the original molecule 01. I was thinking about Mugler Amen and all the Amen pure malt, pure Havane. Are they flankers of the original Amen? Probably, but they are all kind of very different fragrances. Anyway, it's a confusing mind freak at times to think about it. I just wish, I just wish some well-regarded designers would come out. Like, I really want Chanel to bring out a new standalone pillar fragrance like, masculine fragrance. I don't know, what have they released since the Allure Homme line? I'm not sure for that market. Hermes seem to at least release stuff and, minimize the flankers. Dior are just off the chain with their flankers and don't seem that interested in creating a brand new fragrance. Well, since Sauvage, basically. I don't know. Have they released anything else since then? Okay, thank you for watching this video. I will see you in the next one, and have a good day. Bye for now.